let's return to DCP. But once again, a short while ago, you were talking about the issue of a prosecution. Who does that? How does the process begin?
I think Mrs. Adejandro has clearly captured that. The only thing I want to add is that because of the sensitivity and importance attached to diligent and successful prosecution of rape cases in the police today, whenever a rape case will be handled by the police, it must be handled by police lawyers from the police legal department. In fact, the celebrated case of the pastor from Nyanya who was recently convicted was handled by a police prosecutor. He's an assistant commissioner of police. He's ACP Simon Law, and he successfully cracked that case. And so many other cases in Lagos. In Lagos, where I equally worked as the number 2 man at the state CID in Panti. All the rape cases we have are usually handled by the legal department. Sometimes, of course, we literally outsource some to the DPP because of the volume, because you would not in Lagos you will be the sheer number of cases of rape, particularly the sexual abuse of minors, is so mind-boggling that you come to work every day and you literally say things and you think you've seen it all, and then you come the next day, you see some others and you hear some other stories, and you interface with suspects and victims, and you're like, what is this?
Let's take it back. Earlier, while you were profiling, the interaction between an offender and the victim, you talk about some of the things the offender might say. What have you found out in the course of interacting with a sexual predator? What do you read of him, or in a rare case, as it probably is reported, of her?
Well, I've seen different ones, and I tell you one story. There is a guy in Lagos that were arrested. What he does is he gives women rides at night, ostensibly free rides, and then he will do everything to make sure he sexually violates them. Then in the day, he does entirely different thing. He comes out and he steals from women. How does he do that? He drives to a busy place like Allen. It could be via, it could be anywhere. And he sees the lady and he asks him if he asks her if she's going his way. And if there is a consensus there, he gives you a ride. After a while, he orchestrates a defect in the car, and the car starts jerking.
During the day?
Yes, during the day. And the car will eventually stop. And then 90% of the ladies will step out of the car, leaving their bags. And then he pretends he wants some people to push the car. And then they'll push the car. And then, usually, he will again pretend as if he would just want to do vum, 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 and then stop somewhere. And then he goes away. It took a very long time. When you have a mystery criminal, and then we were all thinking, how do we crack this case? How do we crack this case? Eventually, we cracked him. And during our interaction with him, what did he say? He said he was out for revenge, and that he will continue to do it until he dies. What was the problem? He said there was a particular day he did a transaction, and somebody paid him the money, a lot of money in dollars. And then he went to Eco Hotel to collect the money. And when he collected the money, out of excitement, he put the money in the car, went to Bar Beach. Before Bar Beach was taken over by Eco Atlantic, Bar Beach was a beehive of activities. So he parked his car, Kuramo Beach or Bar Beach, somewhere along the line. And then he picked a girl. And a call girl negotiated. He was trying to celebrate. And you see, people are weird. People have different ways of celebrating success. He was trying to celebrate this dollars, about $20,000 or something deal
Yeah.
So he took this girl, and then they got chatting. They negotiated the price. Everything was okay. They now had to do it in the car. But he said that as soon as he got involved with the girl and kissed some parts of the girl's body, he was knocked off.
Was that a mommy water or something?
It wasn't a mommy water. It's a simple thing that as detectives, as law enforcement, we know. Some of the women, the so-called call girls, can actually apply some substances around their upper body. In which case, if you did kiss those body, those things are tasteless. They are virtually tasteless, but they will knock you off. So that was what happened to him. He got that sleeping pill and got knocked off and slept in that car till the next day. And then the young lady, whom of course he doesn't know and he can never recognize, took his key, ransacked the car, opened the boot, and took the money away. This is the story he told us. And so from that day, he became miserable, and there was an anger targeted generically to the women folk. And so every time he sees a woman, he wants to extract revenge. But this is just one, like one in a million.
In a million. I'm sorry, but this is pure not competition for time, you know. So, but issue, I wanted to land by letting us into the issue of the possibility of counseling such persons, because this is a serial predator, you know, out of anger, you know. Yes. Yeah, so
Obviously, these are areas where we are not doing well in this country, and we must tell ourselves the truth. The police is doing so much, but there is so much that the police cannot do. We don't have a functional social system. We don't have a functional, effective social work system. And that's why challenges that has to do with drug abuse, challenges that has to do with suicide tendencies, challenges that has to do with perverse sexual orientation, we don't readily have places. We don't readily have helplines. We don't readily have governmental agencies staffed by the requisite skills to actually do those counseling. At the police station level, we do that a lot. We try to talk to people. But you know how busy and how stretched we are. So these are areas that people like Kingsley and Kirian must pressure the system to actually fix them.
All right, this will be Frank about. Thank you very much. We have a number of tweets that have come in, so let's take the reactions from our viewers. Chris Simeon has this: anyone who is caught in an act of rape should face capital punishment. That's all.
Well, law advocacy, rape is a very serious act that should be seen as such. While the act is condemnable and unjustified, it behooves the individual, particularly women, to address appropriately in order to avoid stories that touch the heart.
Now, Jack Solomon, sexual assault occurs worldwide and it's particularly pervasive in the developing world. and the means, expertise, and facilities for managing cases of sexual assault are grossly inadequate. Now, all mechanisms must be put in place to stop this hydra-headed menace.
Omobola on Babs, rape is largely underreported. This is not unconnected to the trauma the victim has to live with for the rest of their lives. Notwithstanding, the stigma concomitant with it should be reported. Victims should rather live with it than voice it out. Society must rise up for them.
Festus Akimboy, well, there is massive underreporting of rape in Nigeria, and we are in danger of this going from bad to worse. Now, if rape and other sexual offenders are not diligently prosecuted and convicted, victims of rape must be encouraged and celebrated for speaking out.
All right, Joseph, rape has gone viral because of loss of values and ethics. The dressing of our ladies nowadays is a contributory factor. The government and religious leaders should do something about it. After all, there are either Christians or Muslims.
Festus Akimboy again. Now, the number of rape and other sexual offenses prosecuted in Nigeria would appear to be extremely low, which is worrying. Now, government at all levels must provide the resources needed to properly support victims and ensure rape offenders are brought to justice.
Dennis Ujo, thanks for this topic. Your panel have done something good this morning. My question is that what about those that do take ladies to hotel to do sex business?
Now, Tolly MSA has this one, says, rape is prevalent because there is no strong deterrence and it is not treated as a crime against the state. That's not correct. Rape is a crime against the state. Now, police are not trained on how to handle cases, and states, again, that's not correct. DCP Frank Bar has been talking about all of this. But he writes here that only death penalty will address this menace. But the points that you raised, by the way, that rape is not treated as a crime against the state. Rape is a crime against the state. Right. And the police are not trained. Frank Mba has told about the various units that have been created in the police to deal with instances of rape in terms of support as well as prosecution.
All right, from Birikis, my family, teach the young ones parts of their body, and that no one should touch them inappropriately. Do not leave your children unattended. Ask them questions about indecent touching. Make communication easy and open. Talk to teens about keeping their integrity and boost their self-confidence and esteem.
Yeah, well, Kirian, that's another set of tweets that we just got now. Download the Ndayebo. Still, it says parents must teach their children about sex education, how to be bold to express themselves and strong enough to fight for their lives. They must watch out for those perverted uncles, cousins, relatives, close family, friends, neighbors, mates, and lesson teachers, etc.
All right, from Tolisma too, he said.
No, I just dismissed that a while ago.
Okay, exactly. Okay, but this is the second time around. Okay, all right. Now let's go to Usman Banikantu. He says that the rising cases of sexual harassment and violence in Nigeria may not be unconnected with the following reasons: indecent dressing by women, inability to marry at the right age, food, high sexual urge, decadence of immorality. The headway is capital punishment.
Now, Ozode Chukwebuka tweets, our laws on sexual offenses should, as a matter of urgency, be reformed to ensure that adequate justice is meted out in cases of rape and sexual assault.
All right, Sam Jr., my contributions to this program, some parents contribute a lot because some girls go out with indecent dress and their parents will be happy about it instead of correcting them.
Engineer Kanu Emeka tweets, please, we need to teach our children sensitive touches, and when anybody is touching them in such specific ways, they should report immediately. Now, the two gorgeous women in the house, dressed decently, they should please tell our ladies to dress decently as well.
Okay, Oba Dafidi, there's little gender equity in the rape discourse. Why does society ignore the fact that males are also sexually exploited?
Now, Taye Ogunshola, sexual violence is an act of immorality. It's an offense. It's a crime. Now, government needs to act fast to deal with the offenders who need also to be punished severely and register them in an offenders book for life. That brings me to a point. Yes, that brings me to a point. Is there a register anywhere of sexual predators, Fidel?
Section 1 of the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act talks about a sex offenders register. And if we have been following on lately with the DG of NAPTIP, she has said that they have already opened that register where they will register the names of sex offenders. So there is a register at NAPTIP, at the NAPTIP office, because they are the ones in charge. They are the ones charged with the responsibility of the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. So there is a sex offender register. So anybody who the state secures a conviction against, the name of that person is entered in that register.
Is it just name, or you take the biometrics? I mean, elsewhere, Frank Obashi should be familiar with this. Elsewhere, you take you temperate whoever the individual is, so that when he is picked up, you find again abroad where some of these sexual offenders prowl around parks or some isolated locations, and perhaps he appears somewhere. That's usually, so is it just the name?
You see, we look at how terrible our data management process is. It also comes to bear. Driver's license, you give a data, international passport, PAM, ID card, PAM. Everybody is gathering personal data. There's no harmonized collection. All right, and so that is the same problem. We agree it is necessary. NAPTIP is doing a good job trying to have this, collect the biometrics of offenders. But the truth of the matter is this: anybody who has ever been accused, because the process of proof is a different thing. Anybody who has ever been accused of any form of sexual act, if you're an employer, you should know. It should be easily ascertainable. So the crime register, therefore, of the Nigerian police should be something that the public can access. Because they have that register of cases per month, the type of offenses, people in the pension, they have it. Why can't we access it?
But an allegation doesn't necessarily amount to a conviction.
Yes, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if anybody has ever been accused of such thing, because the process of proof is a different thing. But if you have ever been, if your daughter has ever said, listen, I'm pregnant by you, all right, and the police, that's the public domain, is it not? If you have such record, let us have it. I should be able to access it. Because it will now determine who becomes my megad, who becomes my chef, who becomes my driver. Because tendencies, from my line of work.
They repeat themselves.
Oh, yes, they just don't stop.
If I think for time, I was actually going to ask you to talk about the issue of counseling. Because, of course, Frank said that, of course, the police is stretched already. They are doing a bit of it, but they need more bodies or agencies, to also
social welfare department.
Exactly.
No, social welfare department is extremely, it doesn't exist. Look at in FCT, they have a cube, and that is the social welfare.
All right. We'll be there for now. We've actually touched on different aspects of this topic this morning. It's a touchy one, and every family should be concerned about that. That's what we saw in the responses, of some of our viewers at home. And so that's how we conclude this particular edition of Good Morning Nigeria on a Friday. And first of all, I'd like to appreciate our guest, DCP Frank Mba, First Public Relations Officer, is always available here whenever we need him. Thank you so much for being here again.
Thank you.
For our show. And Esther Uzoma, legal practitioner and national coordinator of Proactive Gender Initiative. She's also one of our special guests on the show on Good Morning Nigeria, always around when we need her. And I would say the same for Rachel Adejo, International Federation of Women Lawyers, FIDA FUT chairperson. It's been wonderful sharing your thoughts on the show this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right, as we conclude this edition of the program, let's take you on sports.